Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is Kiddushin daf Lamitet 39. We are on the bottom of Lamed Chet Amabet. Let me share my screen and we can get started. We concluded yesterday by discussing the prohibitions of Chadash, that's grains that had not taken root by Nisan Tet Zion, meaning that they have not experienced, they have not been alive effectively during a 16th of Nisan. And if they haven't been alive during a 16th of Nisan, then they are considered Chadash and therefore prohibited. And we said that that's going to apply. Let me just go through the other mitzvot. And then orla, that's fruit of a tree that is under 4 years old, that has not lived through 4 Tu B'Shvats. And then kilayim, or 3 Tu B'Shvats. Maybe that should be 3 Tu B'Shvats. Because it's one before, and then I think it might be it's 3 Tu B'Shvats, and then kilayim is a mixture of different plants, and the degree to which they apply, and then we right, and so those are the 3 different prohibitions. You're not allowed to grow different food-bearing items together that are not that weren't created that way for Hashem, by Hashem, and so as a result, you're not allowed to. That's considered kilayim, and all 3 of these. The question is how much, to what extent are they prohibited outside the land of Israel? And
going to be there today.
We're going to have some Rashi today. We're going to have a Bach today that we'll start with right now. But in any event, a Bach and a Ramah. Any special women? That is a good question. Boy, it's a good, important question. We should try and bring in some special women because I don't think that there are any today, but we'll see whether we could think of something. All right, as we go. All right, so that's great. Okay, so all right, so we have these 3 mitzvot and the degree to which they apply outside of Israel. And so, as I promised yesterday, there are 2 primary bases for not applying the prohibition of Chadash today. Number 1 is the Bach. The Bach notes that this is not, of course, the musician Bach, but the rabbinical Bach, the rabbi Bach. It was a late Rishon. So he suggests that Chadash does not apply to grains grown outside Israel when owned by a non-Jew. That throughout the discussion of the Gemara, when we talk about Chadash being prohibited, is either where it's grown by a Jew and that outside of Israel, or even in Israel if it's grown by a non-Jew. But when you combine 2 aspects, when it's both outside of Israel and it's grown by a non-Jew, then he suggests that there is no basis in the Gemara to say that Chadash would apply. Since the vast majority of our grains are grown by non-Jews, so then as a result, that's why we don't have an issue. The Ramah says that actually there's a double uncertainty, and that is the basis for leniency, because maybe it was from a prior year, and maybe if it's from this year, it took root before the 16th of Nisan, and so as a result, it is permitted. People have naturally pointed out that that's really just one uncertainty. Is it before the 16th of Nisan or not? But in any event, that was the basis. So there are many that are now strict today, and so as a result, you'll see in many restaurants that are kosher, you'll see the reference to Yashan, and that refers to indicate that it means that there is no Chadash grain that is used in that area. And there are apps that can help you observe this now. It's much, much, much easier than it used to be historically to make sure that if you want to observe this, you can, because the FDA sort of essentially needs to know sort of where everything came from, and so as a result, I'm not sure whether it's the FDA, but in any event, if you can figure out from the various markings on boxes of cereal and the like, when the grain was actually harvested and which grain harvested is from.
I have a question about the Bach. I
Mhm.
always thought of him chronologically as an early Acharon because he lived in the 16th and 17th centuries.
Uh, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's an early Akron. I got myself confused. Yeah, you're absolutely right that he post dates. Um,
He's definitely after the Ramah.
and it's after the remote. That's right. No. My apologies. My apologies. I got myself confused. Thank you for clarifying and correcting that. Absolutely. Um, and so in any event, that is the story with Chadash, and the degree to which it is covered from outside, it is prohibited outside the land of Israel. So all right, so now let's get back to the Gemara, and so we're going to pick up with the start of the 13th line from the bottom of Lamed Chet Bet, and we're going to quote a Mishnah from Orla, which discusses the applicability of Chadash, Orla, and Kilayim outside of Israel, and the extent to which that prohibition is, outside of Israel, is biblical or rabbinic. So Tanan Hassam, we have a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Orla, Mishnah Gimel, a Mishnah Tet in Perik Gimel. So Hachadash Aser Min Torah B'chol Makom. That actually Chadash, when it comes to the prohibition of it, it is prohibited everywhere as a result of the Torah. And Orla Halacha, but Orla is only prohibited everywhere as a result of a halacha. And we'll see what a halacha is in 30 seconds. V'hakilayim, when it comes to kilayim, midivrei sofrim, that is just rabbinic. So my halacha, what is meant by the term halacha? So Amar Rav Yehuda, so we're going to have two answers. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Hilchas Medina. It's what was the practice. It was a minhag. It was or slightly higher than a minhag, but it basically, as Rashi puts it, Hilchas Medina, hanhiguhu paim aleihem. They effectively established it for themselves outside of the land of Israel. So it's effectively a rabbinic decree. So the question then will be, well, what's the difference between that and Kilayim? And moreover, we're going to see another question based on that from another Mishnah. So we'll see that in a second. Ula Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Ula said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Halaga Lamoshe Misinai. It's actually biblical, or at least more than just rabbinic. It is halacha l'Moshe Sinai. That means that it was a tradition passed down from Sinai, but not actually written in the Torah. So Amar le Ula le Yehuda. So Ula said to Rav Yehuda, listen, it makes sense for me, according to me, that I say that Orla was prohibited as a result of a halacha l'Moshe Sinai outside the land of Israel, because Hain Deshanilan Bain Suffolk Arla Suffolk Kilayim. Because now I am distinguishing between Orla and Kilayim, because I say Orla is biblical, or at least stricter than rabbinic, and Kilayim is just rabbinic. Because take a look at this Mishnah, Ula says. Ditanan, we've got a Mishnah, and you're going to see here that there is a distinction to be made between Orla and Kilayim with respect to what happens outside the land of Israel. So let's take a look, and we'll get through it, and we'll see it together. So Savik Orla Ba'aretz Yisrael Ba'aretz Asr. When it comes to uncertain Orla in the land of Israel, well, then it's prohibited. And that's natural, because we have a general principle that uncertainties with respect to biblical commands we are strict with respect to that. Now, there's a debate as to whether that principle is in and of itself a biblical principle or a rabbinic principle, but the bottom line is that we're strict with respect to them. And so as a result, it makes total sense that we would be strict with respect to Orla in the land of Israel, because Orla, everybody agrees that everybody agrees that all three of these are biblical in the land of Israel. The question is to what extent do they apply outside the land of Israel? And so in the land of Israel, so Orla is prohibited. So Bisuria mutter. However, the uncertainty in Surya is mutter, and Rashi reminds us. So here we have our first Rashi. Bisuria he aram tsova. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 lines down, that Surya is the land of Aram Tsova. And what Shekavash David, that David captured it. Misnafva im Eretz Yisrael, and it was therefore included within Eretz Yisrael. The kasavar kibush yachid lo shmei kibush. But we had this principle when we saw in in, I think it was Maseches Gittin, back in the beginning of Gittin, Daf Chet and Gittin, that we saw that when it came to the conquering of Israel, that David conquered this land separately, and basically, according to Rashi, he conquered it for himself, and so as a result, it never obtained the holiness of the full land of Israel. So Hilkach Sveiko Mutter, and therefore, if it's outside the land of Israel, so it's a suffix and it's permitted. We'll come in Parchinan, and we're going to ask if you're going to tell me that this is a halakha l'moshe misinai, in which case it's biblical, and that's what Ula says. How can we be being lenient when it comes to an uncertainty? So in some respects, it's ironic that Ula is raising this Mishnah because he's also raising a question for himself, because if in fact Ula says that this is halakha l'moshe misinai, how can we be lenient outside of the land of Israel? Umashanina, and we're going to answer ema kach nemra halacha, that when we say it's halakha l'moshe misinai, it was the halacha itself was sveika mutter b'chutz la'aretz, that when it's uncertain, it's permitted outside the land of Israel, and vada'a asur, but only when it's certain, then it would be prohibited. So that's what Rashi highlights for us. So again, b'surya mutter, back into the Gemara, b'chutz la'aretz yored v'lokeach uvilvad shelo yir'enu locate. So you're allowed to take it as long as you don't see the non-Jew taking it himself, meaning that as long as it's a real uncertainty, you're fine. Okay, but when it came to kilayim, what do we say? That when it comes to a vineyard that has other produce next to it, ba'aretz asur, that in the land of Israel that is going to be prohibited, even if you're uncertain about it. B'Surya mutar, again in Surya it's mutar. B'chutz la'aretz yored v'locate uvilvad shelo yilko biyad. Whoa! There's a difference, because in the land outside the land of Israel, now we're saying that you can even go down and see the non-Jewish owner pick it. You just can't pick it yourself. So this is a big difference. So how can you explain Ula's asking you, Rav Yehuda? So how this, it makes sense for me that there would be this difference, because when it comes to kilayim, so then as a result, I am less strict with respect to kilayim than with respect to orla. So with respect to kilayim, that's why I will allow you, and it can be allowed for you to go down and see the non-Jew pick it. You just can't pick it yourself. But according to you, Rav Yehuda, Elad L'didach, as we say the last two words on Lamed Chet Amud Bet, and turn to the top of Lamed Tet Amud Aleph, Nitnei Ozeh V'zeh Yoreh V'lo Keach, Ozeh V'zeh Yoreh V'lo Kate. You should have the same rule with respect to Orla and Kilayim outside the land of Israel. Why does the Mishnah differentiate? So maybe not surprising, but not very satisfying. The Gemara answers, Ha'amar le Shmuel Rav Anan. We have Rav Shmuel saying to Rav Anan, Tanei Ozev v'zeh Yored v'lo keach, Ozev v'zeh Yored v'lo keach. So fine, you should have both of the answers be the same. That really, that Mishnah was not supposed to change its language in the middle. So Mar Brei de Rabbana, Maseh Lelakula. And Mar, the son of Rabbana, said actually that Mishnah should be lenient in both cases. That you can see it actually being taken, the crop being taken. You just can't do it with your own hand. And Amar Le Levi Lishmuel, Aryoch Sapek Leva Ana Echol. And we see now, we're going to see a series of people who highlight the fact that Orla situations, when it was a case of uncertainty with respect to Orla, it was all right to create an uncertainty situation and therefore make it so that that a Jew could eat it. And let's take a look. Let's take a look in Rashi, the end of the second line at the top of Rashi. Safekli. This is what Levi says about Shmuel, Safekli, that he can make a suffix for me. Lakot shelo b'fanai. He should cut it not in front of me. Sheyehi safek etzli. So as a result, I will be uncertain as to the status. Va'ana echol uba orlakai. And this is talking about Orla. and I'll be able to eat it. And so as a result, it's highlighting the fact that it seems like when it comes to Orla outside the land of Israel, we are going to be lenient. And Rav Avia Barabba Bar Rav Chanan Masapku Sapuke Lahadade. Avia and Rabba Bar Rav Chanan would actually create uncertainty for each other. They would pick stuff, and it would be uncertain whether it was Orla or not for the other, because the other one wouldn't have seen it, and therefore they would each be able to eat the others effectively Orla. So Amri Charife de Pumbedisa ain Orla b'chutzlaretz. Indeed, the scholars in Pumbedisa went so far as to say that really there is no prohibition of Orla at all outside of the land of Israel. And but Shlacha Rabbi Yehuda lekamei Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yehuda sent in front of Rabbi Yochanan Shalach lei, so to ask about the question about Orla outside the land of Israel. And Shalach lei, Rabbi Yochanan responded, Sdom Sfeka. Don't tell the law about the uncertainty, that when you have uncertainty, it's permitted. And definitely when it comes to certain Orla, destroy it. Meaning, if anybody knows that it's certainly Orla, it should be destroyed. And when it comes to people who are not strict about this law, tell them that it needs to be put away. Omer ein Orla b'chutz la'aretz lo yehe lo nin v'nechad mashlich chevel v'goral v'kahal Hashem. And when it comes to people who say that there is no law of Orla outside of the land of Israel, meaning what the people of the scholars of Pumbedisa had said, they should have no children, no child, no grandchild, and that will have a portion in the community of Hashem, meaning that their lack of observance is going to adversely affect their descendants. Either this can be viewed as a curse, or that it's a likely conclusion, because if we're not strict about certain things in Chutz La'aretz, so then we can actually come to be not strict about things generally. It's a lot easier to have one simple rule for everything than to have a complicated set of rules for various different situations. And when we have complicated rules for various different situations, it's ripe for the pun, I guess, partially intended, for problems, because that may result in people being lenient in situations that they aren't supposed to be. And of course,
rules for Kalayim, which they aren't talking about a lot here, are really complicated depending on what kind of Kalayim it is and whether you're inside or outside of Eretz Israel. I'm in the middle of this Mishnayot right now in the Yerushalmi.
Yeah, that you're absolutely right, and we're going to see some of that complication very shortly. So ve'inu kiman svura. So the ones who were these other people, namely the people in Pumbedisa, how did they hold their position? Obviously, Rabbi Yochanan very much disagreed with them. So Kihadatanya, because they followed the following opinion in the following brisa: Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yossi, Omer Mishum Rabbi Yossi ben Durmaska, Sha'amar Mishum Rabbi Yossi Haglili, Sha'amar Mishum Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Sha'amar Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol, Ein Orla b'chutz la'aretz. That the bottom line is that it was said in the name of Rabbi Rabbi Eliezer that Ben Horkanus, that the halacha is that there is no Orla outside the land of Israel. The low, 1 second, that Rabbi Eliezer that we said that Rabbi Eliezer Ben Horkanus, that Rabbi Eliezer is the same Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah. V'anantanan Rabbi Eliezer Omer Af Chadash, and our Mishnah says even Chadash would apply outside the land of Israel, implying that the other two items, Orla and Kilayim, would also apply outside the land of Israel. So Tani Chadash, so change it to just say that Chadash is the only one that would apply outside the land of Israel. So
there's Kilayim with clothing too. Yeah,
correct. There's Kilayim with clothing too, and that certainly applies outside the land of Israel. Okay, so Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Orla b'chutz la'aretz halacha l'Moshe miSinai. And so again, we have another opinion that says that Orla outside the land of Israel is halacha l'Moshe Sinai. This is, of course, consistent with what we said in the name of Ula, or that what Ula said earlier. So Amar le Rabbi Zera Rabbi Asi. One second, and this should be v'hatnan, because this refers to the Mishnah that we had on Lamachet, that we cited on Lamachet Amabet. Suffolk Orla ba'aretz asur b'surya mutter. Right? We said that when it comes to Suffolk Orla in the land of Israel, it's prohibited, and in Surya, it's mutter. So if you're going to tell me that it's mutter, I don't understand, because it's halakha l'Moshe Sinai, so that means it's biblical. So why should it be permitted, right? And so how could that be the case? So eshtomam kishachada. So Rabbi Asi was a little confused for a moment. So he was quiet for a moment. And Amar le ema kach namar sveka mutter vada asur. So, and then he explained, no, what it must be is that the halakha l'Moshe Sinai is that when it comes to doubtful orla outside the land of Israel, it's permitted, and when it comes to definite orla outside the land of Israel, it's forbidden. So Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, lokin al hakilayim dvar Torah, and that one should actually get, if you violate the laws of kilayim, you should get malchus as a result of the Torah, meaning that that it's sufficiently prohibited that you should even end up with lashes. And as Rashi makes clear here in the language of the Rashi that we're talking about b'chutz la'aretz. He actually adds the abbreviation Beis Chet Lamed, which stands for b'chutz la'aretz, and we are going to see why that's the case in a moment. So Amar le Rabbi Elazar, v'ha'anan tanan kilayim min divrei sofrim. Well, in second, we had that in the Mishnah that we just cited a few moments ago, that kilayim is only rabbinic. So how can you possibly say that there's a biblical element of kilayim outside the land of Israel? Lo kasha kan b'klei kerem kan b'harkavas ha'ilan. That there's a difference. So now we're going to distinguish at least. Well, of course, there's the clothing, as Stan just mentioned. So we're not even going to talk about that one. But we're now going to distinguish 3 different forms of kilayim. And again, this highlights the comment that Charlie mentioned, how complicated these laws are. So, lo kasha kan b'klei kerem. One is talking about when you have kilayim that mix a grape vine with any other green. So then that's going to be klaya kerem, and that is only prohibited rabbinically outside the land of Israel. Kan, when do we say that when Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that the person would get malchus? That's kan bahar kavas ha'ilan. That's where you talk about grafting 2 different trees together. So when it comes to grafting of different species of trees, so then that's going to be biblically prohibited even outside the land of Israel. So now we've distinguished 2 kinds of kilayim. Again, 3 because we have the clothing, but we're not going to really talk about that again. So let's just focus on the planting base. So we've distinguished between, and then the other one, by the way, the 5th one that we're also not talking about is 2 different animals together. Is 2 different species of animals together. Thank you. Species of animals together. It would also be is also a form of kilayim. But we're talking about the 3 that relate to planting, and so we've got one about a vineyard and mixing of things in a vineyard, and the second is grafting of trees. And grafting of trees, we're saying, applies even outside the land of Israel. Kiddushin.
About the different species of animals, that's even complicated. Dogs and wolves are really the same species of animal, but there's a tradition in kilayim that specifically says that dogs and wolves are prohibited to be mated as kilayim.
Interesting, but I don't know whether they are they the formally, I can't remember what the lowest category is, but they're part of the same lowest category, or are they
we are permitted to own and have benefit from animals that have been the product of
correct,
such as mules. We're certainly permitted to own mules.
Correct, exactly.
In the land of Israel, then mules, donkeys.
That's exactly right. Donkeys and horsey. Exactly. 100%. That was Charlie was making that exact point.
An interesting Gemara is that we are not permitted to mate a mule whose mother was a mare and a mule whose mother was a donkey, because they are actually considered two different species.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right.
It's
But in any event, back to planting. So Kiddush Shmuel, the Amr Shmuel has Chukosai Tishmoru. You got to observe the mitzvot, and this is said in connection with the pearl pasuk is Eskukosai Tishmoru Behem Techa Lo Sarbia Kilayim Sadcha Lo Sizra Kilayim Uvegi Kilayim Shatnez Lo Yale Alecha. So we had three different kinds of mixtures that are referred to in this verse. One is animals, second is the field, and third is the garments. And so as a result of that, so what does it mean by Echskukosai Tishmoru? Chukim shechakakti lechakvar. Those rules that I've already said to you, namely behemtecha lo sarbia kilayim sadcha lo sizra, that those prohibitions, ma behemtecha baharba av sadcha baharkava, that when it comes to animals, it's sort of meeting the two together. So too, when it comes to the field, it's talking about grafting two species one next to each other. And just like your animal, the prohibition of mating animals applies inside and outside the land of Israel. Also, the one of your field applies inside and outside. Well, one second, that same verse says your field, and often your field is going to refer to the land of Israel. So no, that's the issue is with respect to seeds. So if we take a look at Rashi, it's about 20 some lines up in the narrow lines of Rashi. That when it comes to klaya kerem, meaning mixing seeds of other vegetables or fruit with in a vineyard, so in chutz la'aretz, that's going to not be excluded. The mishum de afki belashon zriya kasiv sadcha, that because of the language of zriya, you might think that it would include this prohibition. We also then have the exclusion of sadcha to say that it doesn't apply outside the land of Israel, and therefore it's only a rabbinic prohibition outside the land of Israel.
So is it possible that there are certain fruits that we're not allowed to eat?
So the good news is that, excellent question. The good news is that when it comes to those fruits, you are allowed to benefit from it. So even though you wouldn't necessarily be allowed to create them yourself, you are allowed to enjoy them, and so therefore that is not going to be a problem. And yes, you can definitely eat kiwi. All right, so now we're going to have a number of incidents that are going to highlight. Oh, I'm sorry that I did not scroll my screen, so my apologies.
Rabbi?
Yep, go ahead.
I think that the kalayim that is for planting that is prohibited outside of Israel is only if it's one of the seeds is a grape.
You are absolutely correct, and I was purposefully vague on that because we're about to get to that exact point.
Oh, so okay. Sorry, I haven't.
No. So here we go. So now we're going to have three different stories that are going to highlight that kilayim of seeds and kilayim of a vineyard may have different rules, and that's exactly the point that Charlie made. So perfect timing, literally perfect timing. So let's go through those stories. So Rav Chanan and Rav Anan havu shakli va'azli boraka. They were walking along. Chazyuhu lahahu gavra dekazara zraim bahadi hadadi. They saw somebody who was planting two different kinds of species together. So Amrale nesi mar nishamte. So Rav Anan said to his Rebbe Rav Chanan, listen, you got to excommunicate this guy. This guy's doing the wrong thing. So and if they take a look at Nishmate, Deha Avar al Divrei Sofrim. He realized that it was only potentially a rabbinic prohibition, but a rabbinic prohibition, you need to have some kind of enforcement mechanism if we're going to have it apply. So Amrle lo chavrisu. No, it's not clear. You're not clear. You have to understand the details of the law. We're going to see exactly what those details are as we go through the next incidents. So besuchas yuhulahu gavra de kazara chite usare begufne. So then they saw somebody that was planting wheat and barley with grapevines. And so now, oh, that's got to be a problem. So Amrle Nasi Marna Shamte, why we got to excommunicate this guy again. So Amrle Lotsa Risu, Lo, you don't understand fully. You're not enlightened is the translation that's offered here. So like Kaimalan Rabbi Yoshia, because don't we hold like Rabbi Yoshia the Amar Adshi Yizrachita Usora the Chartzam b'Mapolas Yad, that until you actually do it in one hand throw, you have to be doing both together. So it's not enough to have them in proximity. It's you need to do it at the same time. Now we don't actually paskin like that. I believe that we paskin that even planting them not at the same time is going to be a problem when it comes to grapes. But that was the position that Rav Chanan responded to Rav Anan. And so and the next story, Rav Yosef Ma'are Bizrane Zara. So Rav Yosef actually would mix the two seeds together and sow them. Now Rashi helps us out here and saves Rav Yosef's character, because 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 10 lines up, Me'arev Bizrane Vizara below Bekarim. But it was not in a vineyard, because obviously we're going to say that in a vineyard in the end, that's going to be the thing that is rabbinically prohibited outside the land of Israel. But just mixing two seeds together, if it doesn't involve a vineyard and it's not grafting and it's outside the land of Israel, we're going to say that it's actually going to be permitted. So as Charlie highlighted it before. So Amar le Abaye v'hanan tanan hakilayim midivrei sofrim. Well, 1 second. What about the statement that we made a few moments ago in the citing the Mishnah in Orla that kilayim is prohibited outside the land of Israel by a rabbinic decree? So Amar le lo kasha kan b'klei kerem kan b'klei zraim. There's a difference. There's an important difference between if you're going to involve grape products or non-grape products, only non-grape products. If grape products are somehow involved, so then that's going to be the thing that outside the land of Israel is going to be prohibited rabbinically. But when it comes to non-grape products, so then outside the land of Israel, there is no prohibition. So yes, while it's true that all of these things are going to be treated as prohibited inside the land of Israel, we've now created 3 different distinctions. We've got Klai Zraim, which is just mixed seeds without grapes involved, and that's going to be permitted outside the land of Israel. We've got Klai Kerem, which we're going to say is Mendivrei Sofrim and is going to be rabbinically prohibited outside the land of Israel. And then we have grafting, which is we're going to say is actually prohibited even biblically outside the land of Israel. So that's how Kavas HaIlan is grafting. So we've now distinguished the 3 points, and I think that was exactly the clarification that Charlie was touching on. And so now we're ready to continue. So Klaya Kerem Diva Aretz Asurim Behana, because when it comes to Klaya Kerem, meaning Klayim that involves grape products in the land of Israel, you're not allowed to even benefit from them. But so therefore, so as a result, the rabbi said, even outside the land of Israel, we're going to make it prohibited. However, that when it comes to mixing other seeds in the land of Israel, which itself is prohibited, but we will not prohibit the output of it. So if you create the tangerine or whatever the different other kinds of fruit that can be created using an orange and whatever, so then as a result, that if you're not doing the creation even in the land of Israel, it would be permitted to benefit from it. So b'chutz la'aretz, when it comes to outside the lands of Israel, nami lo gazru b'hu rabbanan. So the rabbis didn't even decree it. Then after thinking about it for a moment, Rav Yosef recalls something and gets worried about his behavior. So Hadar Amr Rav Yosef, Lav Milsahi to Amri. 1 second, maybe what I said is not true. De Rav Zara Ginsa Debe Rav Mishare. that Rav would grow everything in his garden in different patches. So maybe the reason that he used different patches for different products is because he was saying that in the land, even outside the land of Israel, you can't mix seeds. And so maybe what I've said is mistaken. So my time of lo mishum lav mishum eruve kilayim, isn't he worried about mixing seeds? And so isn't that an indication that maybe what I said was not correct? So as often is the case, Abaye comes to Rav Yosef's rescue. Abaye, again, was Rav Yosef's close student. Rav Yosef, at the end of his life, in addition to being blind, was had a moment of lapse in terms of his knowledge and understanding, and Abaye was there to sort of remind him of what he had himself taught often, but at least in this case, provides an answer. So Amrle Abaye, Bishlama Iashmeinan, it would have made sense, meaning your concern about Rav's action would be okay if we knew Arba al Arba Ruchos Ha'aruga V'achas Be'emta. If he structured if the recollection that you have was that he structured his produce fields in a way where you had one thing in the center and on each of the sides you had 4 different kinds of seeds, and therefore there was a clear intention to have things as proximate as possible, but also separate. Then Shapir, then you would have had a good concern. Elahacha mishum noi, but maybe what we're dealing with is just he wanted it to look beautiful. He wanted it to look, when you go out into the farmland, it looks beautiful. The fields with their distinct sections, one for corn, one for grain, etc., and one for soybeans, etc. So the inami mishum tircha de shamahi, or maybe he was just, again, in using his different areas, he just wanted to make it easy to find the product that he was looking for, so that if he was sending somebody, Rashi explains that shama'ah means a shamash. If he was sending an attendant out to go get fruit for the yeshiva, so then he'd be able to get the fruit that he wanted. All right, so that is our discussion of Chadash, Orla, and Kilayim. And now we have a beautiful Mishnah. Yep, go ahead, Charlie.
So we literally are doing this right now, as in yesterday and today, in Yerushalmi Yomi. We got to this chapter 8.
Awesome.
And we had Rabbi Yoshia's opinion there, and also a dissenting opinion that's more strict. And also I put a link in the chat to a National Park Service article that shows how the indigenous peoples of the Americas grew kilayim universally, corn, beans, and squash grown together.
Interesting.
And apparently great for the land.
Interesting. That it was actually healthy for the land to do it that way. Very interesting. Yes.
We could grow berries like cranberries and blueberries next to grapes in the same field.
So outside the land of Israel, you should not do that.
But inside Israel,
inside Israel, you definitely should not do it. And inside of Israel, if you actually have that, and you produce something that it has they influence each other if they're sufficiently proximate, so then you would not even be allowed to benefit from that produce.
In fact, there's a positive commandment to uproot the kilayim.
Yeah, excellent point.
Within the land of Israel.
Correct. Yes, because of the strictures that are in the land of Israel. Okay, so kol ha'osa mitzvah achas. So now let's talk about the reward for performing a mitzvah. And I feel bad that we're running towards the end, but we'll see what we can get out of this. Anybody who performs one mitzvah, meitivin lo, they're going to get good stuff happen to them. Umarichin lo yamav, and their days will be lengthened. V'nochel es haaretz, and they'll inherit the land. Now, what does nochel es haaretz mean? So Rashi helps us out here. Take a look at the last Rashi in the Mishnah. Nochel es haaretz, about 7 lines down. Chaye holam haba, you're going to inherit the next world. So the haaretz here refers to inheriting olam haba. Because she'einu osa mitzvah achas, and if you don't do a mitzvah, Aim it's even low. It's not going to be good for you. The aim marichin lo yamav, and you're not going to get your days lengthened. The ainu nochel es haaretz, and you're not going to inherit the next world. Uraminu, but 1 second. Every morning when we say brachot, we don't quote this Mishnah exactly. We quote a Gemara. We paraphrase a Gemara in Shabbos, but the point is that we're going to see that there are some specific mitzvot that we learn have a reward in this world and a reward in the next world. And you just said that every mitzvah has this reward in this world and a reward in next world. Or minu, there are certain mitzvot where you get the fruit in this world and you get the benefit in the world to come. And we just said in our Mishnah that every mitzvah gives you reward with, gives you good in this world and good in the next world. So Eluhain, and what are the 5 mitzvahs that are mentioned here? Kubud Ava'im, respecting one's parents, being kind, being nice to visitors, and making peace between people, and learning Torah is equal to all of them. So the bottom line is, it seems like only these 5 mitzvot are the ones. So Amar Rav Yehuda Hachi Kamar, Kol ha'osa mitzvah achas yisera al zchuyosav. So mitivin lo, that when it comes to our Mishnah, we're talking about where you do an extra mitzvah that allows you to now have more mitzvot in your credit column than you have sins in your debit column. And so then mitivin lo. And once you get over that hump and you have more positive actions than negative actions, so then you are now magically in the good space, and you will get all the good things that are going to happen. And that's the explanation of our Mishnah, and therefore, and now we can say that that's consistent with that other Mishnah in Peah. But 1 second, you're going to tell me that if I do the mitzvah of Kibud Ava'im once in my entire life, and that's the only mitzvah I ever do, and all the rest of my life, I am a wicked, terrible person, that I'm going to get reward in this world and reward in the next world? That doesn't make any sense. So Amar Rav Shemaya Lomar She'im Haisa Shekula Machras. No. When the difference between those other 5 mitzvot is that if in fact I'm exactly even, well then if I have in my credit column any of those 5 mitzvot, well then God will give me the extra credit, and that will be the super bonus. All right. So v'chol mitzvah. So now the Gemara questions this approach and says v'chol mitzvah achas yisera al zchuyosav mitivin lo. 1 second. Uraminu kol zchuyosav merubin ma'avonasav. We have another principle that anybody who's got more positive things than sins may rein lo. We're going to God actually makes them suffer. The Doma Kamisha Sarv Kol Torah Kula, and God treats them as if they had burned the entire Torah. V'lo shir mimena afilu osachat, and not left even a letter left over. V'kosha avonosav merubim mizchuyusav, and if the person has lots of sins, and their sins are more than their merits, mitivin lo, then God is wonderful to the person. V'doma Kamisha Kiyim Kol Torah Kula, and it looks as if he fulfilled the entire Torah. V'lo chisar os achas mimena, and he hasn't left out any single letter from his fulfillment of the Torah. Meaning and what is going on here? Obviously, the point is that God is giving the reward to the person in the place that they most appreciate the reward. For a person who's a big sinner, so then where God's going to give him his reward in this world, and therefore it'll look like everything's great for him. But for a person who's a big mitzvah doer, well then, but he does have some sins, so then God's going to punish him in this world, so that he gets the ultimate reward in the world to come. So but our Mishnah seems to suggest that is not the way that God plays with our mitzvot and acts with us. So 2 potential answers. So Amar Abaye Mas Nisin, when it comes to our Mishnah, D'Avdin Le Yom Tav the Yom Bish. So no, we're going to have to understand our Mishnah a little differently. That when it says Mitivin Lo, it means that God is going to set us up to do good for us in the world to come. And so as a result, our Mishnah should be reinterpreted to be exactly like the Brisa that we just cited. So that's Abaye's approach. However, we have another approach, and that's the approach of Rava. And Rava says that the way we should deal with it is the following. Rava Amar Hamani, who is our this other brisa, Rabbi Yaakov. It's Rabbi Yaakov. To Amar Schar Mitzvah Bahai Amaleka. He's the one who says that there is no reward at all in this world. Because the Tanya Rabbi Yaakov Omer, Ein lecha kol mitzvah mitzvah sheksuva b'torah shematan schara b'tzida she'ein tchias hamesim tluyaba. That when it comes to the mitzvah, that actually the Torah says the reward in it, the reward that we're talking about is in the world to come. It is not. It is all. It's all dependent on tchias hamesim. And why? Because take a look. That Hashem is going to make your days lengthen. And when it comes to sending away the mother bird in order to take the eggs or the young, again, you're going to get a long life. But there's a person who was told by his father, go get me the birds that are in that nest. And the son goes up, and he sends away the mother. And he takes the children. And then when he was coming down, he fell and he died. How did he have his good life? How did he have his long life? That when it says those rewards, it is not referring to this world. Well, 1 second. 1 second. Maybe this story never happened. Rabbi Yaakov Masachaza. No, the whole point is that Rabbi Yaakov actually saw this, and that is how he realized that the meaning of these verses can't be in this world. The Dilma Maharaba Rahava. Well, 1 second, maybe the kid was thinking about some sin. No, that doesn't work either, because Machshava Ra Eina Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitzarfa Lamasa. God doesn't discredit us for our bad thoughts. If we just think that maybe we should do something bad, but we don't actually do it, God doesn't treat it as if we did it. Thankfully, unlike our good thoughts, that if we think that we want to do something good, God will actually give us credit for those thoughts. The Dilma, so the Gemara says, well, 1 second, there is a thought that God does consider as a negative act, and maybe he was thinking about idolatry. That even in their heart, that's going to be a problem. So ihu nami haki kamar. No, that's the point that Rav Yosef himself was making. That in fact, Rav Yosef was saying, if you're going to tell me that there's a reward in this world, why didn't the mitzvah that he was doing protect the boy, so that he wouldn't have the bad thoughts? Well, 1 second. What about the principle that when you're going to do a mitzvah, you're not harmed? Well, sun shiny. Well, 1 second. There, maybe the mitzvah was on his way, meaning that maybe the son had already given the stuff to his father. Indeed, there's an alternative language in the Gemara that suggests that he passed down the chicks to the father, and so therefore he and so as a result he was on his way. So Hasan Bahalicha son shiny. Well, 1 second. Bahama Rabbi Elazar says no, that doesn't work, because shluchei mitzvah ein nizukin lo bahalicha son v'lo b'chazira son. When you're going out to do a mitzvah, you're not going to be harmed on the way or on the way back. So sulam ra'u ahava. So the answer is that actually there's another principle that we haven't thought about, and that is risk. It is true that all of these good things are supposed to happen, even potentially in this world, and all these things are, and these are the benefits. But the kavia hazika, that when you got something that was a rickety ladder, and where there's an actual present danger, and whenever there's a present potential danger, lo samchin anisa, you can't rely on a miracle. Tiksiva yomer Shmuel eich elech v'shama shaul v'haragani. When God tells Shmuel to go anoint David HaMelech, he says, I don't know, how can I do that? Shaul's going to hear and he's going to kill me. So here he's doing a mitzvah, and yet Shmuel was worried. And the answer is he was worried because the risk was identifiable and present. And so as a result, That's why you had to be concerned. So as a result, that's why in the situation with the latter, you can be concerned. And therefore, although Rabbi Yaakov actually has his teaching with respect to it, that all reward is not in this world, you don't actually have to go on that basis. You can actually disagree with that and say that that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So Amar Rav Yosef, ilmale derashe acher lahai kra, if Acher had interpreted this verse, Rabbi Yaakov bar Brate, like Rabbi Yaakov, the son of his daughter, did, meaning that Rabbi Yaakov was the grandson of Acher, Elisha ben Nevuya. So then lo chata, he would not have sinned, because what happened to Acher? But Acher my hava, ika de amri ki hai gavna chaza, that he saw something like this. The ika de amri lishna de chutzpis Hamaturgaman Kaza, that he saw that the tongue of Chutzpis, the Maturgaman, had been ripped out by the Romans, and it was being Dahava Garir lay Dover Acher, and some other thing, namely a pig, was dragging it along the ground. So Amar Pesha Hefik Margaliot Yilachik Afar, how could the mouth that had such beautiful words lick the dust? So nafik chata, so he went out and sinned. And so, but had he realized that in fact the reward for our mitzvot is not necessarily in this world, but could be in the world to come, so then he wouldn't have sinned. He would have realized that in fact that is the where the true reward is, and he would have continued a proper path in life. And so, as we, especially now when we are coming up on Yom Kippur, may we keep in mind the fact that that our mitzvot that we do, we may not see their benefit in this world, but we certainly see the benefit in the world to come. But one of the beauties of and potentially problematic aspects, but one of the beauties of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Olav Shalom's Torah, is the fact that he often highlights how the performance of mitzvot in this world create a better lives for ourselves. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be that the reward is a reward in the sense of getting getting more money, or getting more things, or getting some kind of reward in the way that we ordinarily think, but it can actually be a psychological or a satisfaction in with our lives based reward, and that would be an important thing to keep in mind as well. So if our Mishnah addressed now affirmatively doing a mitzvah or affirmatively committing a sin, well, what about somebody who does nothing? Is that a good thing? A bad thing? Well, for the answer to that question, stay tuned to tomorrow's daf. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.